Hi guys, I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. So today we're going to read I Pledge Allegiance to Mr. Klutz, which is chapter 9. We're also going to read chapter 10. But before we go and we read those chapters, I want to recap on what's going on. So we have our crazy principal, Mr. Klutz, and this is one of our main characters, AJ. Now, Mr. Klutz is the principal of elementary school, and he's not your typical principal. He rides skateboards into school, and he hangs up upside down, and AJ one day got in trouble with Mr. Klutz, and AJ was sent to the principal's office, and AJ got a candy bar instead of getting a consequence. And we've talked about before what a consequence is, and it usually happens after you do something bad versus a reward, which you get when you do something good. So AJ was getting a reward for doing something bad. So now all of AJ's friends in Miss Daisy's class want to go to the principal's office. So him and his friend Ryan played a prank on their teacher, Miss Daisy, and they put a tack on her chair and to get her to sit on it. So both AJ and Ryan did that, and Ryan took the blame because he wanted to go to the principal's office and get a candy bar, but it turns out he actually went and got a consequence, and his parents were called. So now the whole school wants to go to Mr. Klutz's office to see if they'll get rewarded for doing bad things. But Mr. Klutz in return said, you know what, not everybody's going to come into my office, so we're going to make a contest, and then all of you will get a reward for doing something good. So we challenged the whole school to do 1,000,000 math problems, and if they did 1,000,000 math problems, they would get a chocolate party. And Mr. Klutz would kiss a pig. So we found out last time that they did wind up getting a chocolate party. It was a lot of chocolate things. And Mr. Klutz wound up kissing a pig because the students did 1,000,000 math problems. So now we're going to keep talking about our good friends at elementary school and also Mr. Klutz. So let's find out what's going on. I want to congratulate all you kids, Mr. Klutz said over the loudspeaker on Monday morning during announcements. You did it! 1,000,000 math problems. That's quite an accomplishment. See, all you need was a little incentive. So that means like a little push in the right direction. So when I was little, if my mom wanted me to do something, she could tell me, you know what, Alex, if you do this, you can watch your favorite TV show later. So that's an incentive. If you get pushed a little bit, then you'll be able to do what you want to do. This has been such a huge success that I've decided to challenge you all again, he continued. Election Day is coming up in November. This is very important, a very important day in America. I think every child in this school should write an essay about what it means to have elections. And if you achieve this goal by Election Day, I will climb the flagpole in front of the school and recite the Pledge of Allegiance when I get to the top. I hope he doesn't hurt himself again, said Emily. I'll write my essay during recess, said Andrea, who always does everything the second any grown-up tells her to instead of waiting as long as possible like a normal kid. Couldn't we just write one essay for the whole class, I asked Miss Daisy. That would be a lot easier. Mr. Klutz's voice came out of the loudspeaker again. I know some of you will ask if you can write a class essay. The answer is no. If you want to see me up that shiny flagpole, each student must write their own essay. That is my final offer. Take it or leave it. And I'll tell you what, when we all have essays, I will send them to the president to read. Have a nice day. So boys and girls, one of my questions I want you guys to answer on Seesaw is what kind of essay would you write for these elections? What would be your topic to see Mr. Klutz get all the way up to the top of that flagpole? The thought of the President of the United States reading our own personal words was pretty cool, I had to admit. Everybody finished their Election Day essays so quickly. We were done a week before Election Day. Some kids, like Andrea, even wrote 2 essays. One on the morning of Election Day, all the students and teachers gathered on the grass in front of the school. Mr. Klutz came out of the door. He was wearing red, white, and blue Uncle Sam costume. He also had on sneakers and one of those harness and lumberjacks used to climb up trees. His leg was all better, and he didn't walk with a cane anymore. We all let out a roar when Mr. Klutz started to shiny up the flagpole. I was a little afraid that he was going to fall and break his leg or something, but he didn't. For a principal, he was a good climber. When he got to the top, we all recited the Pledge of Allegiance with him. Then everybody let out a cheer. When he was sliding down the flagpole, Mr. Klutz got his foot caught in the rope that holds the flag. He was trying to get his foot loose. His hand slipped, and he fell. The next thing we knew, Mr. Klutz was hanging upside down from the flagpole. His Uncle Sam hat fell off. Everybody gasped. Mr. Klutz was just hanging there, halfway up the flagpole, like he was another flag or something. It would have been the funniest thing in the history of the world if we didn't honestly think Mr. Klutz was going to fall and land on his head. "Help!" he shouted. "My foot is caught in the rope. Quick! Get some pads from the gym for him to land on," yelled Miss Rupee, the school librarian. "Call the fire department," yelled Miss Cooney, the nurse. Everybody was running around like crazy with nobody knew what to do. It looked like Mr. Klutz would have to just hang there from the flagpole all day. "He'll figure a way out of this," I told the kids in my class. "When the blood rushes to his head, it'll help him think." But it was Miss Stacy who came up with the great idea. She went over to the bottom of the flagpole where the rope is tied up. She took the knot out and held both ends of the rope tight. Then slowly and carefully she began to let out some of the rope and lower Mr. Klutz down the flagpole. It was just like a regular flag. When he reached the bottom, the teachers caught him and loosened the rope from his foot. He was okay, he said, except for the rope burns on his leg. "Hooray, Miss Daisy!" Our class cheered. After he was back on the ground, Mr. Klutz got up, brushed himself off, and walked up to the front steps like it was totally normal for a principal to hang upside down from the flagpole. Mr. Klutz is nuts! So boys and girls, there is our title, Mr. Klutz is nuts, and that's another reason why he's a little bit wacky. Could you imagine your principal hanging upside down from a flagpole? Because I couldn't. So now we're going to read chapter 10. Mr. Klutz is getting weirder. I wonder what that can mean. So I want you guys to make your predictions with your loved ones who may be sitting next to you. Let's find out what's going on. Your election day essays were fantastic. Mr. Klutz told our class the next morning. He had a big bandage wrapped around his head. I'm guessing he must have either crashed his skateboard again or found another flagpole to fall off. "Thank you," we all said, but it was a little surprised by the number of spelling errors I found in them, he continued. "We need to improve the spelling at our school, so here's what I've decided to do. If you students can write out a list of 100,000 spelling words by Thanksgiving, I will dress up like in a turkey costume and ride a pogo stick down Main Street." "Yay!" everyone hollered. "How about 1,000 spelling words?" shouted Ryan. 100,000 spelling words, Mr. Klutz repeated, "and that's my final offer. Take it or leave it, and everybody would be spelling correctly. Have a nice day." During lunch, I was sure that Andrea was going to start her list of spelling words just to show how smart she was, but she didn't. She just kind of sat there, picking at her food quietly. "You know, I've been thinking," she finally said. "I'm beginning to wonder if something might be wrong with Mr. Klutz." "Like what?" Emily asked. "Maybe he has some kind of personal problem." "What do you mean?" Michael asked. "Mr. Klutz is a cool guy. Would you rather have a boring principal?" "My mother is a psychologist," Andrea said, "and she says that people sometimes do weird things for reasons that are buried deep within their minds." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means she thinks Mr. Klutz is nuts," said Michael. "I didn't say that," Andrea went on. "All I'm saying is that maybe he didn't want to climb up the flagpole. Maybe he doesn't want to put on a turkey costume. Maybe he just wants people to like him. And the only way he knows how to show is to do nutty things. Maybe he's a sad, unhappy man. Maybe all he wants is a hug or something." "That is the saddest story I've ever heard," Emily said. Then she started sobbing. Me, Ryan, and Michael looked at one another. We rolled our eyes in our heads. "Mr. Klutz is cool," Ryan said. "You're the one who has some kind of personal problem, Andrea." "Maybe Mr. Klutz is nuts," I said. "In fact, maybe he's not a principal at all. Did you ever think of that? Maybe Mr. Klutz escaped from a home at a criminally insane, and he's just pretending to be a principal. Maybe our real principal is tied up in a chair in a dungeon down in the basement. My friend Billy told me." There is no dungeon down in the basement, Emily insisted. That's just one of those urban legends. So boys and girls, an urban legend is some sort of old story that people say that isn't necessarily true. So one that I always think of is step on a crack, break your mom's back. That's one. And there's a bunch of other ones, so you can look those up. So I actually want you guys to do a little research. And I want you guys to look up what an urban legend is and maybe one urban legend of your own. So what I gave you an example of is technically an urban legend, but there's a ton more. So search and let me hear what you guys have found. Sure, that's just what he wants us to believe, I told Emily. He doesn't want us to know our real principal is tied up to a chair down there. He probably tortures him during summer vacation. I think you guys are nuts, Emily said. I'm worried about Mr. Klutz, Andrea said, biting her fingernails. Okay, boys and girls, so that's it for chapters 9 and chapters 10. So tomorrow we'll be reading The Last Straw. So I want you guys to make your predictions with your loved ones, okay, and answer those questions that I told you in Seesaw. And I look forward to hearing your answers. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.